Chapter 91 danced to his tune. But, he said. She looked at him. But what? If you can persuade him to study abroad for 2 years after graduation, then I can consider changing my decision and allowing him to study in our city. It's true? Otherwise, do you think that I would waste my time playing with you? That's not what I mean. I didn't expect you could say yes. William Walton looked at her and smiled lovingly. Since I already know that you set a trap for a beauty, and I still came to flaunt myself, this proves that my decision can be reversed. But you are not responsible at all. Laura looked at him. She squinted her eyes with a smile. Because you're a good brother. You can't just let me be reckless. I wish you'd do something to me. A blush colored her face. He said something improper again. I will let him go to Philadelphia University. In the future, as you're his sister-in-law, you should watch over him properly. After all, you should take care of him like his mother. She looked at him in surprise. If that brat become her student, then wouldn't that be very troublesome? She wiped her mouth. There are so many universities. Why you must choose our school? Because this is the best university in Philadelphia. Also, you work here, so I don't need to worry. Forget it. You should just send him abroad to study. I'll support you with my both hands. You want to dance with my tune? Laura Green gouged at him. William Walton looked at her and laughed. He reached out and rubbed her head. She turned her body to the side to avoid his gaze and snorted. William Walton looked at her with a pampered expression. Not far away, Betty Anderson, who was sitting in a corner, secretly filmed this scene. She had seen them from the moment when Laura entered with Benjamin Walton. Fortunately, at that time, she didn't look around, so she didn't find out Laura's existence. She had originally thought that Laura Green was simply luring the fourth master of the Walton family. Unexpectedly, not long after, William Walton arrived. Her big brother told his parents that she had broken off all relations with Walton family. She wanted to go back and tell them the truth. If Dad knew about this, he probably wouldn't let this slut's daughter off so easily. She curled her lips and looked at the figure of Laura. Laura Green, what right do you have to stand by the side of Mr. Walton? You are simply unworthy. In the afternoon, she returned to the training room. Before class, she gave Benjamin Walton a call and told him the conditions. As for what he would choose in the end, it was up to William Walton to decide. Originally, she thought that Benjamin Walton would have to think about it, but she never expected that he would actually agree to it so readily. She wondered, wasn't this guy unwilling to go abroad to study? Why did he agree so readily now? Could it be that he planned on using some sort of roundabout strategy? Persuade William Walton again after 4 years? She shook her head. After 4 years, she would definitely not care about him anymore. In the evening, after class, she took the bus home. Just as she walked from the bus stop to the entrance of the district, she saw 2 men in black walking towards her. She stood still and looked at the familiar car behind them. One of them stepped forward and said, Miss Anderson, Master Anderson invites you home to reminisce about old times. In any case, even if she didn't get into the car, the other side would drag her in. She simply followed them to the car calmly. After being said to the Anderson family, she got off the car and walked in. Helen Anderson and Nick Anderson were both missing. In the entire living room, only John Anderson and a young man were sitting and chatting on the sofa. Seeing that Laura Green had returned, John Anderson had a rare smile on his face. Laura is back. With a warm expression, she said, Since you have a guest, I'll head back first. That's okay. Come and have a seat. This is the nephew of an old friend of mine. His name is Frank Smith, and he is currently working as a treasurer in his uncle's company. Frank, this is the person I told you about. It's my daughter, Laura. When Frank Smith saw Laura Green, it was as if his eyes were glued to her. Seeing Frank Smith's performance, John Anderson was very satisfied. He knew that his daughter had a certain attractiveness. Frank Smith got up, walked towards her, and extended his hand out. Miss Anderson, my uncle mentioned you many times. I am glad to see you. She looked at him warily and took a step back. Frank Smith embarrassedly put his hands down and laughed. Miss Anderson, let's sit together. Mr. Smith, by the way, my surname is not Anderson. My surname is Green, and... She looked at John Anderson and understood his meaning. This was the man he had said last time to introduce to her. It's not a good thing to know me. Frank Smith laughed. Miss Anderson actually likes to joke around, Laura said in cold voice. Mr. Smith, you don't understand English, right? Like I said, my name is Laura Green. Frank Smith was embarrassed. John Anderson was displeased. Laura Anderson, how can you talk like that? It's the first time he comes to out home and you can't be willful. Frank, don't mind it. Laura's a little stubborn. You'll know her temper after you interact with her a bit more in the future. Frank Smith laughed. Laura's personality is very distinctive. This is a good thing. Inwardly, she was holding back her anger. Mr. Smith, it's not appropriate to call a woman by her name. Call me Miss Green, please. Frank Smith was once again embarrassed. I'm sorry, I followed Uncle. Please call me Miss Green. As she spoke, she went around Frank Smith and sat down beside the sofa. She crossed her legs and naturally picked up an apple to eat. John Anderson stared at Laura, then said to Frank Smith, Frank, come and sit. Frank Smith shook the awkwardness off his face and walked over with a smile. Beautiful people were always rather difficult to deal with. Previously, Uncle Anderson said that the daughter of his relative was extremely beautiful, but he didn't expect that she was very beautiful. He was simply too satisfied. Miss Green, I heard my uncle say that you are a teacher in university. What are you teaching? I'm in school, but I'm not a teacher. I'm just an undergraduate. What can I do? I do odd jobs in school. John Anderson clenched his teeth and looked at her again. He knew that this damned girl wouldn't obediently cooperate with him. Laura, you can't always be like a small child. Don't be too aggressive with your words. Then may I ask you, what is your purpose for calling me here today? I was just thinking that you're not young anymore. It just so happens that Frank is also a promising young man. That's why I wanted to introduce you to him. Heh, a blind date. Her warm gaze swept across Frank Smith's body. Frank Smith felt awkward under her gaze. Laura said, looking at it this way, Mr. Smith is indeed not bad. He looks good, and his conditions are also good. I think you should first introduce Mr. Smith to your daughter. After all, fat water doesn't flow to foreign lands. Chapter 92. You go first if you could. Once she finished speaking, John Anderson's face turned green. Laura, don't not know what's good for you. How can I not know what's good for me? I just feel that introducing a man as good as Mr. Smith to me would harm him. Betty Anderson is the treasure in your hands, but I am a bitch. You said that you admired Mr. Smith, yet you introduced him to someone like me. Mr. Anderson, are you sure you really like Mr. Smith? Or is it? Do you think that Mr. Smith is only fit to be a lowly woman like me, not your daughter? Her words made John Anderson feel extremely awkward. By the side, Frank Smith looked at John Anderson. John Anderson said, Frank, don't listen to such nonsense. This child, she's not mentally prepared yet. Frank Smith forced a smile on his face. The study room in the corner of the first floor suddenly opened. Betty Anderson walked out from inside, aggressively walking towards her. Laura Green, you are a shameless bitch. Why do you have to bother about my matters? My dad introduces Frank Smith to you. That is thinking highly of you. Don't you know what's good for you? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself? You deserve him. I'm not good enough, but you can. You go first if you could. As she spoke, she raised her eyebrows and took a step back. Betty Anderson angrily pushed away Laura. Without preparation, she staggered backward and fell to the ground. Seeing that, Frank Smith went forward to help her up. Just then, Nick Anderson returned. When he pushed open the door, he saw that Frank Smith was about to go over and support her. With a cold expression, he stepped forward. What's going on? Brother, don't worry about it. This slut doesn't know what's good for her. Dad kindly introduced Uncle Smith's nephew to her, but she actually doesn't know what's good for her. Nick Anderson shot a glance at John Anderson before he walked to her side and helped her up. Then he looked at Frank Smith. Mr. Smith, regarding today's matter, I apologize to you for my father. Laura isn't suitable for you, and you can go back first. Nick? John Anderson sat on the wheelchair and patted the wheelchair. Seeing that, Frank Smith turned to John Anderson and said, Mr. Anderson, I think it was indeed a little chaotic today. Miss Green being suddenly dated without knowing about it, it was indeed a little disrespectful to her. How about this? I will head back first. You guys can talk. He picked up his briefcase and left. As soon as he left, John Anderson raised her hand and pointed at Laura Green. Laura Anderson, you scoundrel, you're really trying to piss me off, aren't you? It's true that you want to anger you to death, but I didn't take the initiative to provoke you. You were the one who sent people to kidnap me back, wasn't that right? Betty Anderson ran over. Dad, this woman is shameless. She doesn't like Frank Smith because she thinks that she has a fox-like face and wants to seduce third master of the Walton family. Betty Anderson, shut up. Nick Anderson scolded. Don't involve that person with her. Brother, you helped her speak up, but this woman has fooled all of us, and you don't even know that she has connections with Mr. Walton. Nonsense. I saw her eating lunch with Mr. Walton at noon today. I still have evidence. As she said that, she took out her phone and opened up a video for Nick Anderson to see. Nick Anderson only needed a glance at the video to recognize that the back of the figure was indeed hers. The clothes she was wearing hadn't changed at all. He smashed Betty Anderson's phone fiercely onto the ground. Betty Anderson stomped her feet. Why did you smash my phone? Nick Anderson raised his eyes. Laura, tell your brother, do you still have any interactions with William Walton? She lowered her eyes. Yes. Why did you lie to me? Brother, I don't think there's anything wrong with my normal interactions with others. Betty Anderson coldly snorted. Who goes about normally and touches the head of someone they don't have business with? You're obviously trying to seduce him. I saw you smiling at him with my own eyes. Dad, what my mom said is correct. The children of mice can burrow holes, so naturally a slut's daughter. Betty Anderson, shut up, she shouted. Her gaze moved from Nick Anderson's body to Betty Anderson's face. Being able to seduce William Walton is my ability. If you have the ability, go seduce him too. I don't believe that you can get even slightly closer to him. She looked at John Anderson. If you ever send anyone else over to look for me like this again, I will sue you for kidnapping, and also, there is no relationship between us, so you do not have the qualifications to sell me to your friend's nephew. My own future, I will decide for myself. You can't make choice for me. She turned and walked out. Betty Anderson stomped her feet. Dad, are you letting her behave in such a manner? John Anderson turned his head and looked at her helplessly. Child, didn't I tell you don't come out before Frank leave? Why are you so impatient? It's not like you didn't hear what that bitch said. She told you to marry me to that Frank Smith. Who the hell does she think she is, to actually dare to put me at Frank Smith's place? Why would he, Frank Smith, dare to climb up to me? Betty Anderson said as she gnashed her teeth. Dad, the more I think about it, the more unconvinced I am. That Laura, she was just born from a slut. What right does she have to seduce Mr. Walton? Is he someone she can reach? But the truth is, he has a good impression of her. Betty Anderson walked to John Anderson's side, stretched out her hand and grabbed his arm, then said in a spoiled manner, Father, I want to marry Mr. Walton. What? You must be crazy too. I'm not crazy. She can do that, but I'm more qualified than her. I'm the proper young miss of the Anderson family. She's nothing. Right now, Mr. Walton doesn't know that she is your daughter, but do you think that if he knew, he would still be so close to her? The children of Anderson family and Walton family will never get married. Why is that impossible? The grudges between the two clans' generations already exist. If our generation can get married, then maybe the grudges will be resolved. Furthermore, think about it. If me, a daughter of the Anderson family, were to become the young madam of the Walton family, then Walton family and the Anderson family are at peace. Are we not the biggest winner? William Walton will become our family's son-in-law. Dad, think about it carefully. When Betty Anderson said this, John Anderson pondered for a moment. If this matter was really like what she had said, it would be the best. However, he was afraid. He shook his head. William Walton was not that easy a person to deal with. If he wanted to marry Betty, that would probably be the most difficult task. Dad, I don't care. If you don't help me, then I'll do it myself. When the time comes, I won't care about humiliating the Anderson family. All right, stop messing around and don't do anything rash. Allow me to think about this. Chapter 93. Am I not qualified to like him? Nick Anderson chased his to the main entrance and then circled in front of Laura, blocking her way. She looked at him. What else do you want to say? It's my turn to ask you this. Don't you need to explain something to me? I have nothing to explain. Laura, are you making fun of your own life? How many times have I told you this already? William Walton doesn't allow it, so why do you always disobey me? Why I can't be with him, at least he and his family will not hurt me. He is much warmer than them inside. You can't have fallen for him, right? Am I not qualified to like him? She raised her head and looked at him. We are single. On what basis am I not qualified? Just because I'm an illegitimate daughter of Anderson family? Just because your family had enmity with the Walton family? I don't even know what your grudge is. What does it have to do with me? Also, I am not your family member, so the enormous hatred between these two families has nothing to do with me. He knows your identity. His goal of coming close to you is not simple. Could it be that I can still harm you? Laura, even if all the men in the world hurt you, I won't, you understand? Nick Anderson's words instantly silenced her. She knew that her brother wouldn't harm her. However, what could she do? She rejected what she should have. She'd been trying her best to keep her distance. William Walton is a good person. Could it be that? Was she going to hurt him because of a grudge that had nothing to do with her? Why did she have to hurt someone who was nice to her? Brother, I won't be with William Walton, so don't say any more hatred or things. He has a purpose approaching me. He hasn't hurt me. I'm a bit tired, so I'll head back first. She turned around, and Nick Anderson grabbed her wrist. I'll give you a ride. She shook her head. I'll leave by myself. She pulled her wrist free and stepped away. Nick Anderson heaved a sigh of relief and turned around to enter the house. Betty Anderson had already gone upstairs. He walked in front of John Anderson and said, Don't introduce those trash to Laura anymore. Otherwise, I will take care of them one by one. Dad, this is my last warning to you, Laura. No one is allowed to touch you. After he finished speaking, he turned around and walked upstairs indifferently. Yes, Laura was his. No one can touch her. No one. When she returned to the building, she looked at the place where William Walton always stopped. She stood there in a daze for 3 minutes before she turned around and went upstairs. She had never wanted him to appear before, because she wanted to keep distance. But now she felt sad. She wanted to see him, because his embrace was truly very warm. She slowly crouched down and wrapped her arms around herself. She imagined that someone would hug her and comfort her. Inside the bag, the phone started to vibrate with a buzz. After taking off her bag, she took out her phone. The screen of the phone flashed with the words, Count's third young master. Her lips unconsciously curved up as she immediately picked up the phone. The phone suddenly connected. William Walton looked at it in disbelief. It really connected. He didn't speak, and there was no sound from the other end of the phone. The two were silent for a long time, then William Walton asked, Where are you? At the door. Just arrived home? Yes. What's wrong? She clenched her fists. No. He interrupted her. Don't say it's nothing. You're in a bad mood. Laura Green's heart tightened, and her eyes became sore. William Walton. I'm here. What's going on? Laura took a deep breath. I'm fine. I'm just a little hungry. William Walton was quiet for a moment. Obediently go upstairs and wait for me inside. Don't come over. I'm going out to eat. After dinner, I'll go home and sleep. I'll say goodnight to you first and hang up. Thinking about what she promised Nick Anderson today, she shook her head. She shouldn't have taken advantage of William Walton's Laura just because she was weak. Pick him up when she needs to and kick him away when she doesn't need to. This is wrong. She hung up. She braced herself and went out. Hungry, it's true. In a small alley beside the residential complex, there was a tapas stall. She had come to eat a few times, and it tasted good. She went over and sat down. Tonight, she was going to turn grief into appetite. After eating for a while, a voice suddenly sounded from behind her. Didn't I tell you to go home obediently? After letting out a cough, she turned around and looked at him with a mouthful of red oil. How did you find this place? I told you, I could pull you out even if you went into a rat hole, he said, taking a tissue from the table and wiping her mouth. Seeing the red marks on the napkin, she was too embarrassed to take out another piece of paper and began to wipe it herself. She smiled awkwardly. Have you eaten? Do you want to eat together? Do you think I would eat this? Why not? I've come here twice and it tastes pretty good, she said, taking a string of fish balls from the pot and handing it to him. Try it if you don't believe me. William Walton frowned. He did not move. She pursed her lips. I thought you were capable of anything, but it turns out you also have something you can't do. Being unable to eat anything dirty is very shameful. My stomach is not a garbage dump. After he said this, quite a few people in the crowd glanced at him. She felt embarrassed. Fortunately, there are many ordinary people do not read the financial news. Otherwise, if they recognized him, they would probably say that he was being hypocritical. She pulled him down and whispered, Can you stop talking? Could it be that if you don't eat trash, we'll be able to eat? This is food, not trash. It's all the same to me. She placed a tapa next to his lips. This is not trash. Try it. It tastes really good. Isn't it a pity that you've never eaten anything like this in your entire life? William Walton looked at her. Is it that after I accompany you to eat, we can go back? She nodded her head. She was planning on going back after eating. Was she going to stay here for the whole night? Even the boss refused to accept her. All right? William Walton took it and ate a tapa with much difficulty. Then she gave him another. He raised his eyebrows. It's not bad. However, he only ate 2 before putting them down because it was too unhygienic eating without washing hands first. On the other hand, Laura Green on the side seemed to have gone mad with hunger. In just a short while, she had swept through nearly 20 tapas. Seeing that she was about to continue eating, he snatched the food out of her hands and placed it on the table before pulling her up. All right, you've eaten so much. How can your stomach take it? He took out his wallet, paid the bill, put $100 on the table, and left with her. As he walked out of the alley, she said, Wait for the exchange. What's all the change for? I don't have a place to put them in my wallet. She looked at him speechlessly. Truly, a capitalist who is a prodigal. William Walton walked to the side of the car, opened the car door, and took out the dessert box. You bought food? Didn't you say you were hungry? Chapter 94. Marry me. She looked at him, deeply moved. So, was he here to deliver food to her? Here, take this. She looked at the beautifully packaged cardboard box. It did not look like food. It seems to be a snack. What? You don't like snacks? Oh no. What I mean is, I'm hungry. Why don't you buy some food but some snacks? In my opinion, it's not that you're hungry, it's because you're in a bad mood. I checked online and found out that when girls are in a bad mood, they like to eat snacks. Amongst snacks, the thing that makes their mood the best is sweets, isn't it? She lowered her eyes and chuckled gently. William Walton was embarrassed. Could it be that he made a mistake? What are you laughing at? She received the pastries with a smile on her face. Yes, I like eating pastries, especially sweet ones. After she finished speaking, she turned around and walked towards the district. Her mood was a lot better. William Walton looked at her. Laura. She turned around and looked at him. Huh? He approached her. What happened today? She pursed her lips and lowered her eyes. Let's not talk about it anymore. It will only make my heart upset. It's because of the Anderson family again? She looked at him and nodded. I'll help you revenge. No, even though I don't like that John Anderson, but I don't want to get involved with them too much either. If you continue to target the Anderson family, that group of people will have to blame this on me. Thinking about it, the number of times she had seen John Anderson in these 2 months was more than the usual 2 to 3 years. She didn't like the look of John Anderson's repulsive face. William Walton nodded. Then, when you want revenge, tell me. I'll start a war for you at any time. Speechless pursed her lips and said, It's not like we're going to open fire. For the Anderson and Walton families, this is a war. Oh right, what grudges do you have? Why? You would be so angry with each other. Our Walton family has never been afraid of them. The only ones who are afraid of are the Anderson family. As for what actually happened. He raised his hand and caressed her head. You don't need to know, because in my eyes, you are not a member of them. That's right. He didn't feel that she was from Anderson family at all. How could he approach her for any other reason? She was just an ordinary person in the dust. To him, she had no value whatsoever. He must have been sincere in his kindness to her, though she could not give him love. But she could be his friend. Even if he didn't approve, she would treat him as a friend. Why are you looking at me like that? William Walton stared at her. Laura pursed her lips and smiled, then held the box of pastries in her arms. William Walton, if there comes a day when you need me, I will definitely help you in any way I can. William Walton laughed disdainfully. I wouldn't let a woman help me. Don't look down on a woman, especially a woman like me. I will do what I say. If you don't believe me, just wait and see. So, you changed the word thank you to dishonored check, right? She glanced at him, then turned around and continued walking. I've already said it. I'll keep it to my word. Then I have a thing that needs your help. Do you want to do it? She looked back at him. Tell me. Marry me. He chuckled. I want you to be Mrs. Walton, Walton family's third young madam. She said, William Walton, please, you can't do anything to me now? I've already been trained by you, so I wouldn't blush if I heard those words. She snorted with a smile and turned to continue walking. William Walton followed. I'm serious. You're always like this. That's because you know I won't agree, but you still want to say it again and again. Should I praise you for your tenacity, or should I say you are too willful? So, the reason that you learned so many words is to deal with me. Sorry, when I met you, those words were already there. The two of them chatted and laughed as they came down to her house. She was still walking when he suddenly stopped. Miss Green? Yes, she said, and began to open the door. William Walton said, In a while, go up, finish eating some snacks, have a hot bath, and rest early. Curious, she turned her head and asked, You're not coming up? If you invited me, I would still go up. After all, I have been very close to your little nest recently. I'm not going to invite you. I want to eat all of this myself, not share it with you. Then after you finish eating the pastries, send me an appraising self-portrait to prove that you're not lying to me. You really like the things I buy. So, he really didn't want to go upstairs with her? Somehow, she felt a little disappointed in her heart. She nodded. All right, I understand. When you go back, drive carefully. You go up first, I'll watch you go in. I'll leave after the lights in the house are on. Laura smiled and walked in. As soon as she entered the house, she turned on the light, ran to the window, and looked down. Although she was far away, she could still see William Walton waving at her. She smiled, and even though she knew he couldn't see her, she shook her hand. After William Walton left, she turned around and returned back to the side of the tea table and opened the dessert box. In an instant, her face was filled with smiles. Did he think of her as a 3-year-old? He actually bought her all kinds of cute cakes, and there was even one that looked like the Princess of Usha. She took out her cell phone, took a picture of the pastries, and started to eat. She had clearly eaten a lot, but she still forcefully absorbed and ate 2 more small cakes. Just as she picked up the third one, her cell phone rang. She quickly wiped her hands with a tissue, thinking that it was William Walton. She picked up the phone, but it was not him. The screen showed unfamiliar calls. She picked up the phone and said, Hello. Hello, you must be Miss Green. She nodded her head. I am. May I ask, who are you? Hello, Miss Green. I'm Mr. Walton's secretary, Daniel. I don't know if you remember, but we had a meal together in the restaurant last time. Laura nodded. I remember Daniel. Is there something you need to call me? I wanted to ask you if you are with our CEO right now. She felt embarrassed. He just left. Oh my God, this is going to be troublesome. Upon hearing his words, Laura was a little worried. Did something happen? We are negotiating with foreign partners here. The CEO received a phone call and suddenly left after interrupting the meeting. It's been almost an hour, and the CEO hasn't come back. If he doesn't come back, hundreds of millions of dollars in cooperation will go down the drain. Chapter 95. You are more tempting than the cake. Hearing Daniel's words, a wave of guilt rose in her heart. She didn't even know that. Just now she had even pulled him along to eat tapas with her. She looked at the pastries on the tea table, her eyes red. Daniel, what should we do? Miss Green, don't worry, I'll think about something else first. God, you're back. As he was speaking, Daniel suddenly called his name. After that, William Walton's voice coldly rang out. Did I say I won't come back? Compared to that William Walton in front of her, his attitude was as though it was a completely different person. Daniel replied, No, I saw that you did not bring your phone, so I was unable to contact you. I was afraid that the Allied Trade Association might leave. If he's gone, then so be it. After leaving them, wouldn't the company be earning money? Yes. Mr. Walton, you are right. Daniel said before putting the phone back beside his ear. Miss Green, Mr. Walton is back. William Walton frowned and stared at him. Are you calling Laura? Seeing the look in William Walton's eyes, Daniel felt guilty. Third Master, I'm sorry, I couldn't contact you just now, so I tried to call the Miss Green. But in the end, enough. He took Daniel's phone out and took it. Have you eaten the pastries yet? Hearing William Walton's voice, she stamped her feet gently. William Walton, you're so awful. Why did you do this for me? If your cooperation failed, I can't take such a huge responsibility. It's my business failed. I won't let you take the blame. Of course, if you feel that you've let me down and want to compensate me, you can choose to repay me with your body. I don't mind that. At the side, Daniel dodged hurriedly. Laura was depressed. Please, yet you're still joking around. Stop talking, hurry up, and go in to talk about proper business. William Walton laughed. Don't forget to send me a photo, if not, I will look for you again. He hung up. He turned and shouted to Daniel, who had just reached the entrance of the meeting room. Stop. Daniel quickly stopped and turned his head, respectfully lowering his eyes. Mr. Walton? William Walton threw his phone to him. He picked up the phone. William Walton said, if you dare call her again for something like this, see how I'll take care of you. Yes, I promise I won't do it again. He pushed open the door to the conference room, and William Walton walked in. When she looked at the table full of pastries, she suddenly felt that she couldn't eat anymore. Her appetite gone away because of the call. However, thinking about it, William Walton still hoped that she could eat all of this. She picked up the dessert and continued to eat. After eating another 2 pieces, she couldn't eat anymore, so she took a photo and sent it to William Walton. William Walton heard his phone ring. He picked up his phone, opened the picture, and took a look. Seeing she pointing at the pastries on the table and making a face at herself with the corner of her mouth still stained with cream, he laughed naturally. As he listened to the negotiations, he replied her, you are more attractive than a cake. At the side, Daniel was so nervous that his forehead was about to perspire. He had really never seen him like this before. This was the rhythm of being in love. This Miss Green, just what kind of demon is she? Holy, she was actually able to take Mr. Walton down. He really wanted to kneel down and worship this god. The second day was Saturday. She had originally thought that William Walton would come for a meal. She got up early in the morning and went to the market to buy a lot of ingredients. But after a day, until 7 in the evening, he did not appear. He did not even make a phone call. She stood in the small kitchen, staring at the soup that had been simmering all day, and pursed her lips. Forget it, since he didn't come, she might as well take everything for herself. She cleaned up the dishes and placed them on the table. Just as she was about to eat, she put down her fork and hugged her bosom. She then muttered, you clearly said that we were going to eat together on the weekend, yet you didn't come and didn't let me know? Ha, what a joke. She took a deep breath, picked up her fork again, picked up the dish, and started eating. But after eating 2 mouthfuls, she thought, could it be, is he busy? No time? Wasn't he very busy last night? That must be it. It's better not to think too much about it. But that's not right. He's usually very busy too, so wouldn't he have the time to anger her as well? Thinking about the day before yesterday, he was angry because she didn't call him. She hesitated and went to the sofa to pick up her cell phone and open the phone book. When she found his number, she hesitated on whether she should call him. What if he was busy? Or if he wouldn't come and eat? Didn't he think that she was being sentimental? But if she didn't call, what if he was waiting for her call? Didn't he say the other day that he was waiting for her call? She sat for a while, then stood, uncertain. But in the end, she put down her phone, got up, and went back to the table to eat. Because she was not in a good mood, she could not finish all of the dishes on the table. She didn't want to wash the dishes. After eating, she lazily returned to her bed and laid down. Although it was only 8 o'clock, she decided to sleep. Only when she slept could she not let her imagination run wild. However, it turned out that when you were distracted, it was easy for you to lose sleep. She lay down for a while, and then immediately crawled up, and once again picked up her phone to directly call Benjamin Walton. When the call connected, Benjamin Walton said, Laura, we really have the same heart. I was just about to call you. Oh, what are you calling me for? I wanted to talk to you. William is sick. Why didn't you come and see him? Her heart tensed up. William Walton is sick? What happened to him? Is it serious? You don't know? She felt awkward. I haven't called him yet. Wow, Laura, I want to blame you. William ate an unclean meal last night. He's had this for a whole day and you still don't know? You are too incompetent to be a girlfriend. She immediately thought of the tapas stall in the alley. However, she had also eaten, and had eaten a lot. She was completely fine. Why was William Walton sick? How is he now? I don't know. Anyway, I was looking for you because I wanted to ask you about William. When I went to see him just now, he got angry with the servant, and I mentioned you. He also talked me, stop meddling in his business. Probably he was in a rage. I thought you had a fight. If she knew it would be like this, she would have called him, okay? All right, Benjamin, I understand. I will hang up first. She hung up. Benjamin Walton stared at his phone in bewilderment. That's weird. Didn't you make the call first? You haven't even talked about your matters. Why did you hang up already?